He didn't just cheat, he erased himself. Or at least, he tried to. The day I buried my husband, I thought I was laying my future to rest beside him. Years later, when I walked into a restaurant and saw him very much alive with a wedding band on his hand and my best friend on his arm, I realized he hadn't died at all. He'd just traded one life for another and assumed I'd stay buried in the grief he'd manufactured. The husband everyone thought was safe. If you'd met Ethan the way I did, you'd probably say he looked like the kind of man you could build a life with, not the kind who'd fake his own death to escape one. We didn't start with fireworks. We started with staplers. I met him at the office supply room of the architecture firm where I worked. I was standing on tiptoe, trying to reach a box of printer paper because someone had once again stacked it on the top shelf, and he appeared behind me with that slightly amused smile. "Want a spotter?" he asked. I turned, startled, and saw a guy in a button-down shirt with sleeves rolled halfway up, tie loosened, badge clipped to his belt. Brown hair, warm eyes, the kind of face that seems familiar even when you've never seen it before. "Or," he said, stepping past me, "I can do the tall person thing and you pretend you were about to do it yourself." He grabbed the box like it weighed nothing, set it on the counter, and stuck out his hand. "I'm Ethan," he said. "IT, professional printer whisperer, apparently." I laughed. It wasn't a big moment, but it was the beginning. He fixed my computer that afternoon, twice that week, and then happened to be in the lobby when I was leaving on Friday. "You heading toward the train?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "You?" "Same direction," he replied. "Want company?" We fell into easy conversation on that walk. He was divorced, mutually, he said, like it was a business decision, no kids, living in a modest rental, liked cooking and hiking and old movies. Nothing flashy, nothing threatening. In a world full of men trying to be the main character, he seemed content being reliable. To someone like me, who'd grown up with chaos, who'd done the casual thing, the unreliable artists, the "we'll see where this goes, guys," reliable felt like a miracle. Our relationship grew quietly. Weeknight dinners instead of clubbing, weekend hikes instead of all-night parties, joint grocery lists and shared playlists. He brought me soup when I was sick. He remembered my coffee order before I did. When my landlord raised the rent, he said, "Why don't you move in? We're basically living together anyway, and it would actually save us money." It didn't feel like a trap. It felt like the next logical step. My best friend, Jenna, loved him. She'd been my person since college. Loud, funny, always in the center of any group. Where I liked quiet corners, she liked main stages. We were opposites in almost every way, and somehow it worked. When she met Ethan at a bar one night, she pulled me aside afterward. "He's good," she said. "You know I'd tell you if he was trash. He's boring in that husband material kind of way." "You just called my boyfriend boring," I teased. "In a good way," she laughed. "You deserve boring. No more roller coasters." She started coming over more. Game nights, takeout nights, "I had a bad date, I need your couch and your ice cream" nights. She and Ethan bantered. It sounded like brother-sister teasing. I never felt threatened. If you're waiting for the part where I say I always knew something was off between them, I didn't. That's the worst part. Sometimes betrayal doesn't come with a soundtrack. It comes wrapped in familiarity. The accident that turned me into a widow. It happened on an ordinary Thursday. I was in the middle of reviewing a client presentation when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally, I ignore those during work, but something in my chest nudged me. "Hello?" I answered. "Is this Mrs. Carter?" a male voice asked. "Yes," I said, already feeling my throat tighten. "This is Officer Daniels with the Highway Patrol. I'm calling about your husband, Ethan Carter." The world narrowed. He told me there'd been a 5-car pileup on the highway. Rain, speed, someone hydroplaned, chain reaction. Ethan's car was one of the worst hit. I asked about the hospital. He paused. There was a fire, he said carefully. There was significant damage, and your husband's vehicle was engulfed. We believe he died at the scene. You know those movie scenes where someone drops the phone in slow motion? That's not how it happened for me. I didn't drop the phone. I clutched it so hard I felt the edge dig into my calm. I don't understand, I said. I just talked to him. He was on his way home. I'm so sorry, ma'am, he said. We'll need you to come down to the station to review some information. There were no recoverable remains. Identification is based on the vehicle, the plates, and items found at the scene. No recoverable remains. The phrase slid past me then. It would come back later. The next few days blurred into one mass of paperwork and numbness. There wasn't a body. There was a burned-out car, twisted metal, and what they called personal effects. His watch, his key fob, a melted wallet with just enough left to identify his ID. The officials used phrases like presumed dead and no reason to doubt. I latched onto presumed for about 12 hours, imagining impossible miracles. Then the weight of everyone's certainty crushed that hope. We held a memorial service instead of a traditional funeral. A large framed photo of him on an easel, surrounded by flowers. A table with candles, a guest book, people writing messages like "gone too soon" and "heaven gained an angel." Jenna was there from the first hour. She slept on my couch the night I got the call. She answered texts I couldn't face. She ordered food I didn't eat. She sat on the floor beside me when I woke up screaming from dreams where I heard screeching tires and couldn't move. At the memorial, she stood next to me at the front, gripping my hand so tightly our knuckles blended. "You don't have to talk," she whispered. "If you can't do the eulogy, I'll do it." "I should," I said. "I'm his wife." "You're also human," she replied. "There's no rule book for this." She ended up reading a speech we wrote together because when I stood up at the podium and saw his smiling face in that frame, the words dissolved in my throat. She talked about how much he loved terrible dad jokes, how he made pancakes in the shape of cartoon characters when our nieces and nephews visited, how he'd once driven across town at midnight to fix her computer before her big presentation. She said, "He wasn't just my best friend's husband, he was family." People cried. I floated. I watched my life from somewhere just outside my body. Afterwards, in the reception hall, people hugged me and said all the right, wrong things. "He'd want you to be strong. You're young, you'll find love again. At least you didn't have kids yet. It would be harder." At least. That phrase should be illegal at funerals. I remember standing by the coffee urn, staring at a swirl of cream in a paper cup, like it contained the secret to surviving. Jenna appeared beside me. "You need to sit down," she said. "You're about to fall over." "I'm fine," I lied. "You're not," she replied. "Come on." She steered me to a chair in the corner and made me eat 2 bites of cake. If someone had hit pause on the universe at that moment and said, "Pick the one person in this room you'd trust with your life," I'd have pointed at her. That's how deep the betrayal cuts later. Life as a widow with a perfect best friend. Grief is weird. People show up in waves. The first week, your phone doesn't stop. Flowers, casseroles, texts, calls. By week 3, it slows. By month 3, it's mostly silent, except for your own thoughts and the occasional "just checking on you" from people whose lives have moved on. Jenna never really left. She lived 20 minutes away, but it felt like she lived with me. She had a key, she'd stop by on her way home with groceries, she'd show up with wine on Friday nights, insisting we watch something dumb. She organized his clothes with me, folding his shirts, helping me box up things for charity, making jokes just dark enough to let us laugh without feeling like monsters. "This shirt has to go," she said once, holding up a neon orange monstrosity. "His taste died with this one years ago." "Don't insult the dead," I replied, smiling for the first time that day. He insulted the living when he wore this, she shot back. It felt good to laugh. But grief isn't just sadness, it's logistics too. There were bills, so many bills. Hospital charges for the brief attempt to treat him at the scene, towing fees, memorial expenses, our rent, my student loans. There was also his life insurance. We'd signed the policy together 2 years earlier at the kitchen table, yawning over the paperwork. It's morbid, he'd said, but it's what adults do. The policy wasn't huge, but it was enough that every person at the bank wore the same pitying face when they processed the claim. This will at least give you some stability, one advisor said. Jenna insisted on coming with me to those meetings. You shouldn't have to sit in those rooms alone, she said. She sat there, squeezing my thigh under the desk when I got overwhelmed, nodding along as the advisor talked about payouts, taxes, investment options. I can help you manage this, she said afterward. You know I'm good with numbers. She was. She worked in finance. Budgets and spreadsheets were her playground. She set up a simple system with me: bills, savings, and an emergency fund. We'll make sure you don't have to worry, she said. Ethan would want that. It sounded like love. I didn't see the control. When closure starts to feel like pressure. For a while, I floated in a gray space. Days blurred. I went back to work part-time because the rent and my brain both needed it, but I wasn't really there. I'd stare at a screen for an hour, then realize I hadn't typed anything useful. Colleagues tread carefully around me. No one knew what to say. I didn't blame them. I didn't know what to say either. At home, I cleaned things that didn't need cleaning. I cooked meals that went half uneaten. I slept in the bed that still smelled him some days and like nothing on others. Little things kept tugging at me though. Nothing huge, just off. The accident report said there had been multiple vehicles. I expected news articles, photos, some coverage of something that big. There were a couple of small pieces. Multi-car collision on I-84, 2 dead, several injured. One name listed, Ethan's. No pictures of the wreck, no interviews with survivors, no follow-up. I told myself that was normal. Not every accident is front-page news. Still, an unease grew. The phrase, "no recoverable remains" from the officer's call replayed in my head at 3 a.m. One afternoon, about 5 months after the memorial, I sat on the couch with the folder of accident documents in my lap. The death certificate had a line, manner of death, accident, body not recovered. I'd read it 100 times. That day, it felt different. Jenna walked in just then, juggling a paper coffee cup and a bag of groceries. "Are you reading those again?" she asked, nodding at the folder. "Yeah," I said. I don't know, it feels strange. No body, just paperwork." She set the coffee down and plopped into the chair across from me. "Babe, this is not good for you," she said. "You can't keep picking at the same scab and expect it not to bleed." "I'm not trying to," I said. "It just feels like, I don't know, like I missed something." Her expression tightened, just a fraction. "You didn't miss anything," she said. "He's gone. It's awful, it's unfair, but that's what happened. You digging through reports won't change it. It'll just keep you stuck." I sighed. "I guess," I said. She leaned forward. "Look at me," she said. "You are allowed to live. You are allowed to stop reading those and start doing things that bring you joy again. That's not betrayal, that's survival." It sounded right. Still, later that night, I dreamed I was standing on the side of a highway, cars whizzing past, and I saw Ethan's car drive by, him at the wheel looking straight ahead, like he didn't see me. I woke up with my heart pounding. The next morning, I called the number on one of the accident forms and asked for more details. The person on the other end was kind but vague. "The incident was closed," she said. "We have no indication that the identification was incorrect." "Were there any other fatalities?" I asked. "Just your husband," she replied. "Others were injured, but he was the only one listed as deceased at the scene." I hung up feeling more unsettled, not less. When I told Jenna later, her jaw clenched. "Why would you do that?" she asked. "Do you want to torture yourself?" "I needed to hear it again," I said, "from someone who was there." She shook her head. "You're going to drive yourself crazy," she said. "This is not healthy. You need closure, not more questions." The word closure started to feel like a command more than comfort. The night everything snapped into focus. The night I saw him started out like an ordinary attempt to be normal. It had been nearly a year since the accident. My coworkers had finally stopped flinching whenever they invited me somewhere. "We're doing a team dinner near downtown. No pressure, but it'd be good to see you outside of the office," my manager said. Jenna encouraged me to go. "Say yes," she said. "You can't live on my couch and Netflix forever. I'll even help you pick an outfit." She rummaged through my closet, pulled out a simple black dress and a jacket. "Perfect," she said. "You're going to look hot. Not that you're going for that, but still, bonus." I laughed despite myself. She knew I hadn't even thought about dating. The idea of letting someone else that close felt like wearing shoes on a broken foot. That night, I took a rideshare to the restaurant. It was one of those trendy places, dim lighting, exposed brick, plants hanging from the ceiling. The kind of place Ethan had always said was trying too hard, but secretly liked. I checked my phone in the lobby. My coworkers weren't there yet. The host looked up. "Table for..." I glanced past him, scanning the room for our corporate name on a reservation card. My eyes snagged on a laugh I knew. There, at a table near the back, in a pool of warm light, sat a man who looked exactly like my dead husband. Same shoulders, same way of holding a glass, same tilt of his head when he listened. Next to him, leaning in, hand on his arm, was Jenna. My Jenna. She was laughing at something he had said, her eyes bright, her fingers playing with the edge of his sleeve like it was the most natural thing in the world. I blinked. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. Grief does that, people say. You see your loved one in crowds, hear their voice in passing. But hallucinations don't clink their glass against someone else's. Hallucinations don't lean in and kiss someone on the cheek. I stood there rooted to the spot as he turned his head just enough for the light to catch his full face. It was Ethan. Not a look-alike, not someone with similar features. It was him, alive, laughing, wearing a wedding band on his left hand. I must have made a sound because the host glanced at me. "Ma'am, are you okay?" he asked, voice low. I couldn't answer. My ears buzzed like I'd stepped next to a jet engine. My heart pounded so hard I saw spots. For a moment, I thought I might faint, which would have been a neat metaphor. Widow sees husband and collapses. But my body chose a different route. Adrenaline. My legs moved before my brain fully caught up. I walked towards their table. Each step felt like moving through water. Jenna saw him first. Her smile froze on her face, then melted into something else. Panic, guilt, calculation. Ethan saw her expression, turned, and our eyes met for the first time since the officer had said, "I'm sorry," a year ago. His color drained. His mouth opened slightly. He looked like he'd seen a ghost, which I guess was fair. So had I. "Hi," I said, my voice shockingly steady. "You two look alive." The world around us kept moving, people eating, servers carrying plates, but at that table, time stopped. Jenna's hand jerked away from his arm like it had burned her. Ethan shifted in his seat like he wanted to disappear under the tablecloth. "Can we go somewhere private to talk?" he asked, voice low. "Oh," I said, "suddenly you care about appropriate timing." Jenna grabbed her purse. "Let's just step outside," she hissed. "We can explain." There was that word again, explain, as if there was an explanation that didn't involve the words, "We betrayed you." Part of me wanted to turn around and walk out, pretend I hadn't seen anything, go home, climb into bed, and let denial swallow me again. But another part, the part that had survived memorials, bills, empty beds, and well-meaning pity, knew this was my moment. The truth was ugly. I wanted to see its face. "Fine," I said. "Let's talk." I watched Ethan stand. He moved like someone whose joints worked just fine. No limp, no sign of the catastrophic crash that had supposedly killed him. Walking behind them towards the side exit, I noticed something else. On Jenna's left hand, glinting in the low light, was a ring, a diamond I recognized. It was the ring Ethan and I looked at once, decided against because it was too much. Apparently, it wasn't too much for his second life. We stepped out into the cool night air, the door swinging shut behind us. muffling the noise of other people's normal evenings. For the first time since Ethan died, I wasn't a widow. I was something else. Something angrier, something sharper, something ready to hear how a man fakes his own death, marries his wife's best friend, and thinks he can walk away from the grave he built without consequences. He didn't just cheat, he committed a kind of emotional homicide. The night I saw him alive with my best friend, I thought the worst part would be realizing my grief had been for nothing. I was wrong. The worst part was realizing they'd both watched me drown in it and said nothing. The side door confrontation. We stood in the alley beside the restaurant, under a buzzing security light that made everything look harsher than it already was. Ethan shoved his hands into his pockets like he was just cold, not caught in the middle of the worst lie I'd ever lived through. Jenna crossed her arms over her chest, eyes darting between us, already calculating angles. She said, "I can explain first," because of course she did. I looked at her. "You're going to need to," I said, "but he goes first." I nodded at Ethan. He swallowed. "I didn't plan for you to find out like this," he started. "Interesting opener," I said, because most people lead with, "I'm sorry I let you bury me alive," or "I'm sorry I made you a widow so I could upgrade my life." He winced. "It's not like that," he said. "How is it then?" I asked, because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like that. He took a breath, like he was about to start a presentation. "The accident was real," he said. "There was a crash, there was a fire. I was supposed to be there." "Supposed to be?" I repeated. "But you weren't." He shook his head. "I swapped cars with a coworker that day. He took mine, I took his. We were messing around, joking. He wanted to test the sound system. I said sure. Then the crash happened. His car, my car, was in the middle of it." My stomach turned. "Is he dead?" I asked quietly. "No," Ethan said quickly. "He walked away, banged up but fine. He wasn't in the car when it caught. That's part of why they couldn't figure it out right away." "So somewhere in that chaos," I said slowly, "you realized they thought you were the dead one." He nodded, eyes flicking away. "And instead of calling to correct them," I continued, "you just let them keep thinking that?" "It wasn't like that," he said, louder. "I panicked. I saw the news alert on my phone saying Ethan Carter presumed dead, and I just froze." I stared at him. Panicking is forgetting your lines at a presentation. Panicking is crying in your car for 20 minutes. Panicking is not letting your wife get a call from the highway patrol telling her there were no remains to bury. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried a different track. "I was drowning, Amelia," he said. "In debt, in expectations, in us. I didn't know how to say I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't breathe." "There's this thing called divorce," I said. "People do it every day. You sign papers, you argue over furniture, you split the streaming subscriptions. None of that involves a fake funeral." "You don't understand," he said. "You would have been devastated either way." "You're right, but one of those devastations doesn't involve me filing a life insurance claim on a man who's out here ordering appetizers." I turned to Jenna. "And you?" I asked. "What's your excuse?" She bristled. "I didn't know at first," she said. "He called me the night of the accident. I thought it was a sick joke. He was supposed to be dead. He said he'd run, that he couldn't take it anymore, that if he came back it would ruin everything. I told him to turn himself in, that you were going to be shattered. He said you'd be better off with the insurance than with him." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "Wow," I said. "So noble." She flinched. "A few days later," she continued, "when the memorial was being planned, I tried to get him to call you. He refused. He said, 'She'll heal, she's strong. This is my only shot at starting over.'" "And you just kept the secret? For a year?" She looked down. "I told myself I was protecting you," she said. You had money, you didn't have to worry about bills. I was there for you. I thought maybe it was better this way than having him walk back in and blow it all up. You thought I'd be better off believing my husband burned to death in a car than knowing he was a coward who walked away. She swallowed. When did it turn into this? I asked, gesturing between them. When did "I'm helping him hide" become "I'm wearing his ring"? It wasn't planned, she said quickly. We talked a lot. About you, about everything. We were both lonely. Something just happened. Something? I repeated. Did it just happen before or after you watched me give a eulogy at his memorial? She didn't answer. The silence said enough. Turning pain into evidence. Standing there, I realized something important. I could scream. I could slap him, I could throw a drink in his face, I could cause a scene loud enough to get the restaurant's attention. It would feel good for about 5 minutes. Then what? I thought about the binder on my shelf at home with copies of the insurance policy, the death certificate, the payouts. I thought about the officer telling me there were no remains. I thought about the fact that I'd signed my name on forms stating, under penalty of law, that my husband was dead. And I thought about what it meant that he wasn't. You know what the funny thing is, I said slowly. I could go to prison for this. They both blinked. What? Ethan asked. I filed a claim. I took the money. I used it to pay for the memorial, the rent, the bills. I did it all believing you were dead, but the insurance company doesn't care about feelings, they care about facts. Right now, the facts say I took a 6-figure payout on a lie. That's not your fault, Jenna said quickly. You didn't know. The law might see it differently, I said. The person who faked his death definitely committed fraud. The person who benefited from it, even unknowingly, might end up liable to repay every cent. I looked at Ethan. You put me in that position and you let me stay there for a year. He rubbed his face. I can fix it, he said. I'll talk to them. I'll cover it. It doesn't have to get messy. I tilted my head. Oh, it's already messy, I said. You faked your death, disappeared, and married my best friend. I'm just deciding whether I want to be messy and broke, or messy and done letting you control the story. Please, Jenna said. If you tell them, you'll lose everything. They'll take the money. You'll be back at zero. Let us figure it out. We can pay it back quietly. How? With his non-existent morals or your bonus checks? She winced. Look, Ethan said, I know I screwed up, but going to the insurance company, the police, that's nuclear. Everyone loses. Wrong, I said. You lose, she loses, I lose money and maybe some peace, but I get something else back. What? He asked. My name, my story. I get to say I didn't willingly participate in this. They looked at each other. Just think about it, Jenna said. Don't do anything yet. Talk to a lawyer first. Make sure you're not burning yourself along with us. That's the first smart thing you've said tonight, I replied. I took a step back. We're done here. Enjoy your dinner. Try not to choke on the lies. I walked back through that restaurant like my legs belonged to someone stronger than myself. My coworkers were at a table now, waving me over. I couldn't do it. I turned around, walked back out the front, and went home instead. And first thing the next morning, I did exactly what Jenna had warned me to do. I called a lawyer. This isn't just cheating, this is a crime. The attorney I found wasn't the kind of guy you see in TV dramas. He was middle-aged, a bit rumpled, with a coffee stain on his tie and kind eyes behind smudged glasses. He introduced himself as Mark, then said, "Start at the beginning and don't leave anything out, no matter how embarrassing." So I did. I told him about Ethan, the accident, the memorial, the insurance payout, the bills, the grief. I told him about Jenna's constant presence, her help, her discouraging my questions. I told him about the restaurant. By the time I got to, and then I saw them together, he had stopped taking notes. He leaned back, fingers steepled under his chin. Okay, he said, a few important things. He raised one finger. First, you are not the bad guy here. You filed a claim in good faith based on official documentation and the word of authorities. That matters. Second, yes, this is potentially serious. The fact that he is alive and knowingly allowed a life insurance payout on his death means the insurer will be extremely interested. Life insurance fraud can lead to criminal charges at him and, in rare cases, at anyone who knowingly participated. Third, the longer you sit on this, the worse it looks for you. Imagine the company finds out later, on their own. They look back and see you had suspicions, maybe evidence, and didn't come forward. So what do? I asked. You get ahead of it, he said. We contact the insurance company, inform them of what you learned, and offer full cooperation with any investigation. We differentiate between you as an unwitting recipient and him as the orchestrator. Will they take the money back? I asked. Almost certainly, he said. They can revoke the claim, demand repayment, and potentially sue, but we can negotiate terms, maybe a payment plan, maybe argue for leniency given your good faith. I thought about my bank account, my future, the safety net I'd thought I had. I'll lose everything, I said. He shook his head. You'll lose money, he said. You'll keep your integrity, and you'll sleep at night knowing you didn't keep living off the proceeds of a lie. I exhaled. Do it, I said. Call them. He nodded. One more thing, he said. You mentioned witnesses. Anyone who knows he's alive and knew about the payout? Jenna, I said, my former best friend. He scribbled the name. She may have legal exposure too, he said, especially if she actively helped cover this up, but that's for investigators to sort. Your job is to tell the truth and stop letting their choices define yours. It's a strange feeling, realizing the only way out of someone else's crime is through a storm that's going to hit you too. But sometimes you walk into the storm so you don't spend the rest of your life waiting for it. The social bomb. The insurance company moved faster than I expected. Within a week of Mark's letter and the evidence I provided, they scheduled a meeting. They were calm, professional, and terrifying in that corporate way. A woman in a navy suit and a man with a laptop asked me to go through everything again. They played the call from the accident report, looked at photos of the memorial, reviewed the payout timeline. When I showed them the photo I'd taken, Ethan and Jenna at the restaurant, date-stamped a full year after his death, the man's jaw tightened. This is exactly the kind of thing we train adjusters to look for, the woman said quietly. Most people who fake their deaths for money slip up. They show up online, they contact someone, they get careless. She glanced at me. You coming forward on your own makes a big difference, she said. We'll be focusing our investigation on him and anyone who knowingly participated. You will still be responsible for the funds, but that's a civil matter we can structure. The fraud, however, is his problem. That same week, Mark advised me of something else. They're likely to pursue criminal charges, he said, at minimum against him, perhaps against her, depending on what they find. About me? I asked. You've done what you needed to do, he said. I can't promise they won't be angry, but anger isn't the same as prosecution. You've demonstrated good faith. It felt like standing on a cliff edge with a rope tied around my waist, hoping the knot held. While the legal wheels started turning in the background, another thought took root. Most of our social circles still believed Ethan was dead. They'd sent me sympathy messages, brought casseroles, cried with me. They had no idea he was alive, and they had no idea that the woman who'd positioned herself as my savior had been sleeping next to my ghost. I didn't want revenge for the sake of revenge. I did want the truth out of the shadows. So when Jenna texted me an invite 2 weeks later, "A few people are getting together at my place. You should come. It'll be good to be around everyone," I said yes. I could almost hear her relief through the screen. At her apartment, the same group who had hugged me at Ethan's memorial were there. Wine, snacks, music low enough for conversation. Jenna floated around like a perfect hostess, topping glasses, laughing too loudly. At one point, she tapped a glass with a spoon. "Can I have everyone's attention for a second?" she asked. My stomach dropped. She cleared her throat. "This last year has been a lot for all of us, for Amelia especially, but sometimes out of tragedy, new things grow." I stared at her. She wouldn't. She would. "Ethan and I," she started. "That's enough," I said. The room turned toward me. "Amelia, maybe we should—" "No," I said. "You started. Let's finish." I set my glass down, hands steady. "You all were at my husband's memorial," I said to the room. "You hugged me. You told me you were sorry. You watched Jenna stand next to me and talk about how he was family." There were nods, confused frowns. "What you don't know," I continued, "is that Ethan is not dead." Silence. Someone laughed nervously, then stopped when they saw my face. "He faked his death, walked away from the crash, let the world think he burned in that car, and disappeared. I filed an insurance claim. I used the money to survive. I genuinely believed he was gone." Eyes widened. "He has been alive this whole time," I said, "and he's been spending a lot of that life with Jenna." I turned to her. "Do you want to tell them where you two were last Thursday, or should I?" Jenna's face had gone chalk pale. "Amelia, this isn't—" I pulled out my phone. On the screen was the photo from the restaurant. Him, her, wine, hands touching, both very much alive. Gasps rippled through the group. "You were with him?" someone asked Jenna. "It's not what it looks like," she said, voice cracking. We didn't plan this." "You planned enough to let her bury him," one friend said quietly. "You planned enough to let her think she was a widow while you played house." Someone else asked, "Is this a joke? This is illegal, isn't it?" "Yes," I said. "Insurance fraud is illegal. The company knows. There's an investigation. There will probably be charges." Jenna's eyes flashed. "You're going to ruin his life," she hissed. "I ruined mine first," I said, "and you helped." I didn't stay much longer. I didn't need to. The looks on their faces, the betrayal in our friends' eyes, the way people shifted away from Jenna like she was radioactive, that was the beginning of her social karma. The legal kind was still loading. Fallout. News doesn't spread as fast in real life as it does in movies, but in friend groups, it's close. Within days, people who'd once sent me sad face emojis started sending variations of, "Is this true?" and "What the hell?" The investigator called. They'd confirmed Ethan was alive. He'd been captured on security cameras, tracked through employment records, even glimpsed on social media in the background of someone else's photo, just like in mine. When they confronted him, he tried to spin it. He claimed he had no idea a claim had been filed. He said he thought I knew he was alive and that we'd agreed to separate. The paper trail said otherwise. Emails, dates, timestamps, it all added up to a plan. Disappearance, presumed death, insurance payout, new life. "People really do this," Mark told me once, sliding an article across the table. "They think they can stage a death and vanish. It almost never ends well." Ethan's life shrank quickly. His employer let him go when they found out he was being investigated. His name hit a couple of local outlets. "Man fakes death, leaves wife found living nearby" is the kind of headline people can't resist. He went from being a ghost to being infamous. Jenna's world got smaller too. Friends stopped inviting her out. She became that woman, the one who helped her best friend's husband disappear and then showed up on his arm. Once, months later, I saw them in a grocery store parking lot. They were arguing next to a beat-up car. He looked older, shoulders slumped, eyes darting. She looked tired in a way makeup couldn't hide. I could have said something. I didn't. I just walked past them with my little basket of vegetables and my own slowly rebuilt life. My life after the grave. People like to ask, didn't you feel empty after losing the money? Yes and no. Yes, because having that cushion had felt like the only good thing to come out of a nightmare. No, because losing it meant I'd finally stopped being a character in his scam. I picked up more hours at work. I took on freelance design projects. I sold some furniture that had memories I didn't want anyway. I started therapy. Unpacking a fake death will do that. We talked about why I'd chosen reliability without asking if it was honest, why I hadn't questioned Jenna more when she inserted herself into every part of my grief, why I felt guilty for falling for lies when the lies had been crafted by two people I trusted most. I learned that being duped doesn't mean you're dumb, it means you trusted someone who didn't deserve it. Slowly, my life became less about Ethan and more about me. I redecorated the apartment. I took his photos off the walls, not out of spite, but because I didn't want a fake ghost staring at me while I ate breakfast. I started going out again, not to date, not yet, just to exist in public as someone who wasn't the widow or the woman whose husband faked his death. I met new people who knew me as Amelia first, not as an appendage of someone else's story. Jenna wrote me an email months later. It was long, rambling, full of "I never meant to hurt you," and "I was confused," and "he made me feel seen in a way no one else did." Somewhere near the end, she wrote, "I'm sorry, I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am." I didn't reply. Not because I didn't hear her, because answering her would have pulled me back into a conversation I had finally walked out of. Choosing silence can be an act of self-preservation, not pettiness. Ethan sent a letter from wherever he ended up after the legal dust settled. He wrote that he regretted everything, that he'd been an idiot, that he'd ruined his life. He also asked if I could help with his restitution payments. I laughed out loud when I read that, then fed the letter into the shredder. Some people don't change, they just get caught. What I learned from burying a man who wasn't dead. Looking back, the wildest part of this story isn't that my ex faked his death. It's that he honestly believed that disappearing would be easier than being honest, that vanishing would hurt less than telling the truth. He wanted a clean slate. Instead, he got a criminal record, a reputation so trashed he'll never outrun it, a relationship with my former best friend built on the ashes of betrayal, not on anything solid. Karma didn't hit him like a lightning bolt. It hit him like a long, slow avalanche. For me, it looked different. Karma wasn't about seeing him in handcuffs or watching Jenna lose friends. It was about realizing that I could lose money, status, relationships, and still be okay. Better than okay. I could be free. Would I have preferred a normal divorce and an honest breakup with a friend who said, "I'm having feelings, I need distance"? Of course. But we don't get to choose other people's integrity. We only get to choose our response. My name is Amelia. My husband faked his death. My best friend betrayed me. I lost an insurance payout, some illusions, and two people I thought were my future. In return, I got my life back. If you were in my place, would you have told the insurance company and risked losing the money, or stayed quiet and let him live his sick little fantasy as a dead man in peace? Do you think exposing him and my ex-best friend was the right move, or would you have taken your revenge another way? If your ex ever pulled a wild plot twist on you, faking something huge, staging a lie, or trying to rewrite your whole life story, your letter to Karma deserves to be heard too. Share it in the comments, and maybe your story will be the next one read on Karma's letterbox.